So what you've seen just then is me tearing the top end off of a motor. Now, I decided to pause it at this point because what I have here is one of my 175 kits, and it's done about 2,000 kilometres. Now, I'm the first person to agree that that's not a great deal. This isn't the first kit that's been through this engine. Believe it or not, I do believe in testing things, and I do like breaking things. It's very amusing. So I thought I'd go from time lapse to normal speed here, so that the whole world could see that when I pull this barrel off here, first the barrel's going to be in perfect condition. Secondly, the piston's going to be serviceable. And thirdly, there'll be no broken rings. So let's prove me right. Now I'm just going to get behind the camera here to sort of see what you guys can see. Now look at that. That's lapped in beautifully. There's a carbon ring up the top, and that's fair enough. But other than that, nice. Now let's wrestle with this piston so we can have a look at that. A bit of an unusual colour up the top. I've been messing around with jetting, so I would say that that's an unfortunate side effect of that. Now I can't help but teach as I go, and I do apologise. Dropping a circlip in an engine, a piston circlip, has got to be about the most inconvenient thing that you could possibly do. So when you remove these guys, just be careful. Well, also it helps if you aren't blind as bad as I am. You can see what you're doing. You also find is that if one side doesn't come easily, sometimes they don't, you can always go to the other side. And out she comes. Just rotating it there to take the tension off it. Okay. Well, that's got a bit of a shine to it. I'll just pop that down there. I don't reuse circlips, by the way, as a general rule, unless I don't have one of the appropriate size. We just want to force that out really carefully. Okay, get myself a little squeeze. Tool for the job is always the answer. Now this particular engine actually came from a little Honda that got written off, which is not hard to do with these things. I mean, really, you know, a couple of good knocks, and because the purchase price of these bikes is so low, it's quite commonplace for the the insurance companies to just simply say, here's a check. So I've just popped that back into the connecting rod and I'm giving that a wiggle, and that feels nice. And of course we have our piston here. Now there's been a bit of scuff, but generally speaking that's not too bad. As your bore size increases, you can imagine that this pin sits inside the piston like that, sits on top of the connecting rod. Now the bigger the bore, the more that the piston is going to rock. And of course, if you've got a short stroke, that generally tends to have a, not always, but it tends to have a shorter piston like the CB does. And that means that it will actually rock slightly, fraction, thousandths of an inch at the very most when the piston comes up and the rod angle changes, and that will cause scuffing there. And of course that's not too bad. And you've seen some of my videos. I'm not incredibly nasty to my machines, but I certainly don't coddle them, especially not the test bikes. You know, it's always really good to pick little bits of shrapnel out of the bottom of a crankcase. Sadly, with this project, I haven't had the opportunity to do that. It's very depressing, but I've never actually had a test motor fail. I did do some machining on one of the pistons of an early version of the 175 kit. The thickness of the piston was then about 100 thousandths of an inch, and I knew that was too thin, but I put it in anyway just to see the effect on the motor, and that ran well. So I chugged around on that, abusing it with a performance cam in it for quite a while, and that resulted in a piston cracking. Now of course that doesn't happen on our production kits. We try and keep the production kits well within reasonable specifications. So I forget exactly how thick the piston was. I think it was about 100 thou or 80 thou or something like that. But it certainly didn't do it any favours, and the compression ratio was very high on the early kits, and that's something that I have been trying to combat. Part of the reason why that dome is there, of course, is to actually lift the compression ratio in conjunction with use with a particular cylinder head, which is also sold with the 175 kits. But anyway, I'm not displeased with that. I mean, what I'm looking at is a piston that's obviously been around a bit, but you know, when you look at it, it's still obviously quite new. And I'd see no evidence of any scoring or inappropriate thrusting against anything there, so the piston rock is under control with this skirt. And you know, I would not have seen this piston failing in the near future.